Hey, you guys, this is the Couplings Fire podcast. Here's a couple of things you might need to know, or maybe you just forgot. I'm Taylor, a volunteer firefighter and also a firewife to my favorite firefighter. Join me as I talk anything and everything fire related. I don't claim to be an expert, I just love to talk fire, and everything I say is my own opinion. My goal? To inspire anyone listening to take the steps to bettering their department, however they can. Let's get on to the episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Couplings Fire podcast. I have an exciting guest today, for me at least, because this is somebody who I was literally one of the first two podcasts that I started listening to when I got into podcasts, and actually helped kind of guide me into the overall wide world of the fire service. So I have Robby Owens on from Average Jake podcast and the Average Jake Firefighter blog. So Robby, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first off, thanks for reaching out and having me on. Like I said, I've spoke to you some on the DMs and social media and listened to episodes of the podcast. I think it's a great approach you're taking with the firefighter, wife and husband, and trying to, and just the spin you have on the fire service. We were kind of talking a little bit offline about, like everybody should have a little bit of seat at the table because everybody's perspective is different. And, it's not, not every fire department is the same. Not every relationship, what works for someone else doesn't work always for the other, so it's good to have different perspectives, like having the many tools in the toolbox. So really, really great to be on this episode. But as far as me, again, my name is Robby Owens. I run the Average Jake Firefighter podcast and Average Jake Firefighter blog. I've been in the fire service since I was 15 years old. I started as a volunteer with the Mechanicsville Volunteer Fire Department. I got hired as a career firefighter at the age of 20 with the Stafford County Department of Fire Rescue. And then at age of 22, got hired with my current department, the Henrico County Division of Fire in Henrico County, Virginia. Currently a captain with that organization, and just an overall student of the fire service. I don't really like bragging about myself or whatever, talking, but like I've done some instructing, I've done some teaching, I've done some writing. I'm married with two wonderful kids to my wife, Karen, and my boys, Junior and Ben, and, 15 and 12. So that's exciting times in our lives now, with one starting getting ready to drive and, one right on his heels. But yeah, that's pretty much me. Like vast experience in the fire service. I've been a volunteer firefighter, a combination firefighter, and all career firefighter. I've worked part-time at a couple of different fire departments. So I feel like I've got a lot of different perspectives on different avenues in the fire service.
Well, that definitely makes more sense now, because I don't know if I knew all of that background. I knew a lot of it, but not all of it. So the different perspectives you're able to bring to the table just on your own, because you've been in a bunch of different spots with it. It's crazy.
Yeah, like I said, I started out as just a volunteer, and then when I worked in Stafford County, it was a combination department. And so I was a career firefighter in a combination department. Well, at the right around that time, Hanover, the county I volunteered in, which was where Mechanicsville Fire Department was located, became a combination department. So at the exact same time, I was a volunteer and a career firefighter in two different combination departments. Also, I worked part-time as a part-time firefighter in a county called New Kent, which is a little bit further east of my career department is. And it too was a combination department. So I was a part-time firefighter in a combination department. And then my current department is all career. So I've worn many different hats, so I can see which is valuable, because it does allow me to have those different perspectives, when people are bringing up issues or whatever, I've been like, well, hey, I've been there, because I've been a volunteer that was mad at a career guy. I've been a career guy that's been mad at a volunteer, right? Like, so I've worn those different hats, and I think it gives me a unique perspective that maybe not everybody else has.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I don't know, just the whole that you're on two combination departments at the same time on different aspects kind of blows my mind. That would be interesting. And I feel like that would be hard to switch your mindset between the two at the same time, between the things. So
I agree. It was. And especially too, when you're at that point in your life, at that point, at that time in my life, I was 22 or 23 years old. Actually, yeah, 21, 22 years old. So you're not as mature as you are now, right? Like I say this in my career department now, like, like 20-year-old Robby would make a different choice than almost 40-year-old Robby, right? Like, because
Oh
you
yeah.
hopefully, God bless, I hope I'm not the same person as I was then, right?
If you
But
were, it would be so boring.
yeah, I mean, and it would mean that I learned nothing in almost
Exactly.
20 plus years in the fire service, right? Like, when you're younger, you tend to be a little more emotional and you pop off. And, some of the decisions I made then I would do 100% different now, right? So it definitely what has been a unique time. And I wish I could get in the DeLorean and go back in time and smack myself a couple of times. And then sometimes I wish I would have been more assertive, right? Like, like I'd stand up for myself a little more, like, no, I'm right about this. Like listen to me and just communicate a little better. So no, it's been a unique experience. Like I said, in 20 plus years in the fire service, over half my life in the fire service. As we talked about offline, it's been well worth it for me. Of course, you're going to have ups and downs in your career. It's a roller coaster, right? Like you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have down periods, and you're going to have way up periods. But overall, as a fire service career for me, it has been 100% worth it.
Awesome. All right. So we could keep talking about this all day. We really
we could.
let's move on to the actual episode. So we're gonna talk about leave of absences. And this is going to be tackling both from the career side and the volunteer side from our perspectives. And I thought of you specifically for this episode, first of all, because I wanted to have you on at some point anyways, but second of all, because I saw the post that you put out on your, at least Instagram page. I don't know if it was on Facebook also or not. Back, September 7th is what I'm looking at. Mm-hmm. And you had taken a month leave of absence. And I'm actually in that same spot right now where I'm actually on a leave of absence myself. And I have been since this past spring. So like a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about maybe some of the pros. I don't know if there's too many cons, maybe some of the cons, some of the different points to it, why it can actually be a good thing and what we both have learned from it, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you have any backstory for your leave of absence at all first, or?
Yeah. So with mine, I've always been I'm trying to figure out the right way to put this, but I've always been kind of an all-in person, right? Like I'm not a halfway person, right? Like if I join something, I'm like, you get all of me. Like when I, right. So when I like I coach as well, like, or me and my wife, we ran a youth wrestling organization for like 7 years, and it was like basically like if I wasn't at work as a firefighter, I was coaching wrestling. Like that's how it went, right? Like, and so and that's just the type of people we are. And so as you go through your career, and I've been like I said, from 15 to I'm 39, I'll be 40 in January. I had never taken a significant break from the fire service. Like I went to college at Eastern Kentucky University and studied fire science, right? So even when I was away from my volunteer department at that time, when I was 18, 19 years old, I was still deeply involved in the fire service, right? Like we had an organization called the Association of Fire Science Technicians. And so we would do training with the Richmond, Kentucky Fire Department and Madison County Fire Department and all those things. So never have I ever taken that long of a break in my fire service career. And I just felt like I needed it. I personally felt like I was in one of those down periods in my career. A lot of backstory to that we can get as granular as you want with that. But the long story short with it is that my department has gone through some significant organizational changes. Mm-hmm. Right, wrong, or indifferent, love it or hate it, we just have. And it had changed what I was currently doing. We had station captains. And so like I was a station captain and I was in charge of one firehouse, 3 lieutenants worked for me, and underneath them was 6 or 7 firefighters, right? Like, and I was responsible for the station budgeting. I had 2 shops out of my station, and it's really what I wanted to do with my career. Eventually, I'd like to be a battalion chief, I think, but what I really wanted to get to was where and it sounds like a little bit selfish, but I don't really mean it that way, but I just don't know any way to say it. I wanted my piece of the fire department, right? Like this place is mine, like I set the operational tone. I decide, like, what direction we're taking training for the firehouse, like, and there's 20 other ones, right? Like, that have their own captain and have their own little part of the fire service. And that got changed. We no longer have that position. So they moved us around. Some went to administration. They put some of us as like a floating officer, and that's what I am now. I'm more like a fill-in officer, and I have different duties as part of that. But it was really I still don't know if I'm to that like acceptance level of the grieving process with it. I don't know if I'll ever get there.
Yeah.
But it put me in a down period, and I just needed, and I could tell it was affecting my attitude. It was affecting, like the interactions I had with people, like people who had been my friends for decades. Like, I was having bad interactions with them and like getting angry at them. Like any, and it was stuff outside the fire service. Like, they would speak up, and I'd be like, I hate everything you say. Like, I don't want to hear anything you're talking about the Washington Nationals baseball team, and I hate you. I don't want to hear your words. So I was like, man, I need a reset. I need to go away and get a reset. And so I was like, I've got more than enough leave. I've never been a guy that takes a lot of leave. Like, I'm always right up against our annual leave balance. Like, I've come dangerously close to where, like, because you can't carry over but so much hours every year. So I've come dangerously close to them, like, taking annual leave away from me. And so I was like, man, I've got more than enough leave. I'm taking the whole month off. Yeah. And we're going to go and we're going to do. And I can tell you, for me, what a tremendous, like, just reset for me. Like, man, mentally, physically, like, it's, just, I came back to work extremely refreshed and ready to not necessarily accept this new position that I've had to be in, but to try to make it work better, right? Like, try to attack it a little more instead of just doing it.
There's a reason why people go on vacation. There's Absolutely. A reason why you need to take your vacation days, for that reason, for you to be able to come back re-energized and be able to do the job, whatever it may be. So mine was that we were moving. So, taking a break again was kind of a blessing in disguise. I didn't want to. I miss it like crazy still, because I still actually haven't gotten back on a department as of yet, because we're still trying to figure out job situations and make sure I'm in a certain living area to certain departments and stuff in the area to be able to volunteer with. So I've been without a department since this past spring. And let me tell you, it's been nice sometimes. Like, I miss it. I really do. And as soon as I get back to it, I'll be head first, like I always have been. But it's been nice because I've been able to sleep better because I'm not worried about the pager going off 24/7. That's been fantastic. But the same way, I was starting to get frustrated too with different things happening in my department as well. And getting away from that, and though it's only been a few months, in the few months, I feel like I've grown up a lot. And I've learned, it's like, okay, maybe I should have taken some of this better. Maybe I should have done things a little differently. And hopefully when I go back to a department, I'm refreshed and able to bring the best parts back to the table again and to be able to handle that better.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think another piece to it for me is, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, and my good friend Ben Martin, who again, he runs a website called embracetheresistance.com. It's a lot about leadership. And it talks about celebrating, like, we don't celebrate, or celebrate leaders. We just, like, it's just talking about real leadership, like dirty kind of stuff. Like, and one of the things he wrote years ago that I really have adopted is legacy versus impact. And I've talked about this on other podcasts, is that you can make a tremendous impact in your department, right? Like, you can impact people, you can impact processes, you can can have an impact in your organization, your fire department, whatever you want to call it. But it's impossible to leave a legacy in a department, like, especially in these days where, like, the turnover rate is so high. Like, and for example, like, the fire chief that hired me 17 years ago, we have people now that have no idea who he was. Like, there's people in the department, you say, when you say Chief Maston, they go, who? Or guys that were 20, 30, 40 years in the department, and you bring up their name, they go, who? which these guys were like legendary to me, right? But to these other guys, they don't know. And so I really started thinking like I was definitely, it was reversed, right? Like I needed to reverse back where like my legacy is at home with my wife and my kids. Like I still talk about my great great grandfathers, right? Like
Yeah.
that's your legacy, right? Like I mean, like that's the legacy. Your family is where your legacy is, whether you have kids or not, right? Like that's where your legacy is going to lie. Like I mean, we do research on our family members. You know what I mean? Like in the fire department, like you can have a tremendous impact and it's going to be worth it. It's going to be valuable. 5 years after you retire, half the job is going to be new and they're not going to know who you are.
Yeah,
This morning,
you might end up in their thing for the academy and with the recruits saying, you know, this is our history and this is whatever, but that's might be it. That might be all you ever get, depending.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I'm a captain in our fire department, and there's not that many captains, right? Like, there's like 20 out of 600 people, only 30 of us are captains. Like, yeah, 30, right around like 25, 30. So, I mean, like, it's a small number out of a 600 person fire department. This morning, when I got off shift, I was relieved by two people that I had no idea who they were. And they didn't know who I was either. And I've been here for 17, you know, and it's a large department. It's 600 some people. But like, I've been here for 17 years and I'm one of the only 30 people that have 2 bars on their collar. And these guys don't know who I am. And I had no idea who they were. I'd never met them before, ever in my life. I was like, who are these guys?
Not everybody can be the Mike Dugans and Ray McCormick's and everyone else fire departments. That is very few and far between.
And there's gonna be a time where those guys are probably forgotten in the FDNY.
Yeah,
it really is. Like it as big as the FDNY's job is, and all this. I mean, like there's probably going to be a time where people don't remember them. I mean, and that's sad, right? But I guarantee their family will always remember them, right? Like their kids' will talk about, you know, Mike Dugan. Like, you know, I mean, like I still talk about my dad's great grandfather, right? You know, like my great great grandfather. Like we have pictures of him in our house. You know, like we talk about like the stories that I've heard from my grandfather about him, right? Like, so that's where and so to bring it back to the taking a break thing, right? Like that has been something I've strived to do for the past couple of years is to really start to try to make that legacy with my family, right? And I have kids and they're awesome, but I can tell you, like when they were growing up, I was not as good as a father as I should have been. So I'm trying to make up for that now. Like, and I wasn't saying like I'm some deadbeat dad or anything, but like I would totally like blow off a soccer game to go to a fire train. Like I would totally do that. Like that's the type of, you know, and then I'd be like, oh, hey, I'll take you out for pizza afterward, right? Like I'm going to come home and then we'll go out to dinner. Well, I should have been at the damn soccer game. Okay. Like that's where I really should have been. You know, there's another chance, trust me, there'll always be another opportunity to go force a door. Right. And so when this opportunity to take this month off and go on a trip to watch them wrestle in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and then we went to Dollywood together, and then the following week go to Disney World. I mean, like, and to spend all this time together, we'll remember this trip for the rest of our lives. You know, when they're telling their kids, like, how was your growing up, Dad? Like, you know, well, we remember this one time when we went all the way to Tennessee to wrestle, and well, you know, that's the story they'll tell. Not Dad worked 100 hours of overtime this month. You know what I mean? Like they won't care about that. And so that's another reason for me of why it was so worth it for me to take that break.
That is definitely an interesting perspective. And I'm honestly more than curious to see what I'm going to be like as a parent in the future. Like, you know, just because I haven't heard it talked about like that before. I've always heard everyone always talks about the work-life balance and things like that. And, you know, how family is important, but nobody's talked about the legacy like that.
I wish it was my words, right? Like I'm just taking a lesson from someone who I respect, you know what I mean? Like, and we're very good friends and we work on a lot of projects together. You know, he was my boss at one point in time. And like, we are such good friends that like, he got promoted above me. And then we were equals. And then I actually got promoted above him and to captain first. Like we both went for captain and and then he got promoted to captain. Now we're equals again. Right. And like, you know, so like we both respect each other. And like I said, it's his words, not mine. I just try to live it. And I try to spread that because I think it's valuable. It has definitely changed my perspective. Still love the job, right? Like I was just reading, like before I brought my kids to wrestling practice tonight, I was reading John Norman's new book. Right. Like, I mean, like that. I mean, I'm into it, right? Like I'm into it. I'm listening. If a fire comes out on my phone, I'm running to my scanner and turning it on so that I can hear. If my brother is working in the city of Richmond, I am daggone listening to the fire that he's going on. I mean, like, and when my dad was still in the fire service, if he went to, so I'm still super into it, but I just feel like that, the job can only give you so much, and you can, I want to give my family more than I'm giving the job. And I don't know if everybody feels that way.
I think it's a hard balance to get to, for sure. I have usually the balance between fire life, owning a business, and then life with my husband. And it's tough. It can be tough. And for the years that I was going really hard at the business stuff and fire stuff, it didn't leave a lot of family time with Chris. It really didn't. And it was tough to deal with. And I can't imagine going through that with kids. And so I'm really hoping to take this into the future me listen back to this and remember it all. So, okay. So maybe let's kind of get into why should a person take a leave of absence? What are some good reasons why? I know we've already talked about if you're kind of at a, not a, how do I word this right?
Well, you're not at the high point of your career, right? Like you're on one of those lulls in your career, right? Maybe it's like for me, like the example we talked about, like when we went through an organizational change that I didn't necessarily, I wasn't jazzed about it, right? You know what I mean? So that was a really good reason for me to take a break.
Yeah, I know I've seen others who have had kids, immediately take a break, leave of absence. I know in my previous department, it was, you could take a 6-month leave of absence if you wanted to, and they would allow that. And then even if you got to that end of 6 months, you could apply for another 6 months and they could let you, or kind of say you should really come back or things like that. And I know other places are different. Now I know career side doesn't get necessarily 6 months. It's kind of hard to take 6 months off, but it just doesn't really work that way. But it is.
I don't even know anybody that has that much leave.
Sometimes,
from a volunteer side of things, right? Like I know when I was in college, I was volunteering, but I would, I couldn't meet the membership requirements all the way, 8 hours away at school, so I think that's a great reason to take a leave of absence from your department, right? Like if they'll allow that for you to maintain your membership, like going and getting educated, or, like I took a leave of absence when I was in the academy. I was still volunteering when I got hired in my career job. And I'd like, hey, I'm not coming up here on my duty crew nights while I'm in recruit school, like not doing it. Like, it's not worth it. I don't want to get hurt, I don't want to get hurt going to a fire in the volunteer house, or be up all night on a fire and then have to go to make muster by 8 o'clock, right? With my boots polished and my uniform. So I think those are two from a volunteer perspective. And let's say it's not even in the fire service, right? Like you're volunteering and your paying job offers you a tremendous opportunity to go get education to further your career. Man, why would you not take it? Like just for your, so I think those are some really good reasons to take a leave of absence from a volunteer perspective.
Oh, definitely. I was trying to think of some more from the career side, but I don't have experience with the career side.
I think the mental health piece from the career side is a big thing too, man. Like not just if you're like burned out from the, as if on cue, like here comes a fire truck and an ambulance, like right behind me while we're recording. That's awesome. That'll be pretty cool. There you go. But can't get away from it, even when you're trying to take a break. But like that mental health piece. And unfortunately, my fire department in the last 2 years have had 2 firefighters commit suicide, right? And they did not, and they didn't take the breaks that they needed for whatever reason, right? Like it was clear that with one of them, it was unclear what was wrong, and people reached out to him and tried to, and he just didn't, he didn't feel that he could walk away from the job. He didn't feel that he could, so he ended up succumbing to his mental health problems. The other guy, it was clear that he needed to take a break, right? Like there was something up with him, and ultimately he chose to end his life. And so man, I can tell you that, like, if you're feeling that way now, that's probably a time to take a break, right? Like you need to mental reset and go talk to people and all of the things that you need to keep your mental health, on that side of things. Because, and again, I don't know, every fire department's different, right? Like the fire department that I'm from now currently, we're pretty busy. I mean, like we're running, you know, 20,000, not 20,000. Sorry. We're running close to like, I want to say it's like 60, 70,000 calls a year across 3 shifts. 80% of them are EMS, like everywhere else in the country. You're seeing the dead people. You're seeing, and to tell a story on myself, before we did this reorganization change, I was one of our EMS supervisors, which is part of the command team. You know, captain rank. You're in charge of fires if you get there first, all that kind of stuff. But your main job is to manage the EMS logistics and go and provide ALS, advanced life support to ambulances and stuff like that that need backup. And someone told me who had done the job, he goes, man, you need to keep a good eye on your mental health because you're going to see every dead body from half of the county over. You're going on every one of them.
Yeah.
Like you're on your day, you're going to go on, you get dispatched on every cardiac arrest, every vehicle extrication, every working fire. Like you're going to every critical call that's going to happen from half the county over. And I'm like, well, this is what I've always wanted. You know, like I want to go on every good call. So awesome. Sign me up. A year into it, I was like, man, I need a break because I've seen every cardiac arrest for last year that I've been here, and it's horrible. Like I just need to not see a dead person today. Like that was where and so it even wore on me mentally a little bit. And if someone like me who's like jonesing to go to a call, like I sit there and I'm like, oh, here we go, let's go to a call. Like I get bored. If it can wear on me, then it can wear on anybody. You know, so I really think that's the time to do it as well.
So I'm wondering, this is a thought, I don't know. From what I've seen, the mindset of people you get in there are people who are not, well, they're super excited about the fire service. They want to be there. Fire departments are hiring for culture now. A lot of them are getting on board with that, which is fantastic because they're getting that type of person. But I'm wondering, and it may not have an actual correlation to anything necessarily, but the people that maybe should take a break but don't, it was either once a spotlight for them to go and have fun and go and, because it is fun. Let's admit that.
Oh, yeah.
They want to go on calls. They want to go, like you said, on the good calls and things. It was a spot that would actually help them out with their mental health in the first place, right? It was good for them. So they think if they keep going to these because they want to anyways, they're so into it, they think it's going to be okay. There's no reason that another call would do any worse to them or anything, or that couldn't be exactly what's causing it. It's just, I'm wondering if that kind of has some correlation to it, just by the good coming in, the best intentions that are coming in are also having an adverse effect because of who we're bringing in. And what
I definitely think there's some correlation there. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that. I don't study the brain. I'm not Dina Ali, who's like
maybe we should put in
expert.
Maybe we should put in that like PSA right now that we are not experts in any of this. We're just talking.
Not even a little bit. Yeah, not even a little bit. I can only, like I said, I usually just speak for me. You know, I know how I feel like when I do certain things, and I know what works for me to make me feel better. You know, some of those things would some people would think are healthy, and some might think that they're destructive, right? But like I know what makes me feel better after I do certain things, right? Like, but I definitely think there's a little bit of that, right? You get that saturation, and you don't get any sort of separation from it, and I definitely think that that's a big thing, right? Like. And part of it too is the old school mentality that I got brought up in, right? Like I came into the fire service at like a really unique time. Like when I first got into Mechanicsville Fire Department, we did not do EMS, right? And there was still a lot of departments that were like that. I mean, a ton of departments were still like, no, we don't do EMS. Like EMS, what's that? And like that was me. And so all my EMS stuff came like I got my EMT to get a job. Like make no bones about it. I got like if you didn't have to have it, I wouldn't have got it. And then as I expanded my career, I went 8 years as a career. Almost 10 years as a career firefighter before I ever got my medic. And I did that because it was out of a sense to help. Now, granted, they pay us more to be a medic. That was part of it. But also it was a part of I was tired of being only highly trained for 10% of the calls. Like, I mean, I've got vehicle extrication, I've got, rope rescue, all this highfalutin fire stuff, and I'm just an EMT basic. And, so the majority of the calls I'm going on, I'm like the lowest common denominator. And that's tough for somebody with a personality, like that wants to help to deal with, right? Like, what do you mean I can't help on everything? Right. So, but the converse to that is, at least in my department, like ALS is a hot commodity, and it changes the trajectory of your career when you become that medic. And so you're riding the ambulance a lot more. You're getting that exposure to those critical calls even more. And no matter what, over a 20 some plus, you're going to get saturated with those things. And I definitely think there's a correlation to that. 100%.
All right. Yeah. Little sidetrack there, but I thought I'd bring that up just because I was curious about what.
No, I like it. No, I like it. I think it's important to talk about. Like, it is an important topic to talk about, like with what we're saying, because it is like taking that leave of absence can mean or do anything for you that you need it to, right? Like if your mental health is bad, or your shoulder hurts, right? Like you need to stop lifting old ladies up off the floor at 1 a.m. Like it can help.
Oh yeah, so it's one of those, if you think like a leave of absence wouldn't help you, or like, that's not for me. That's what I would say. Honestly, that's kind of what I would say for myself. Like, a leave of absence won't help me. That's not the answer here. I need more fire stuff. I need more whatever. It's probably actually the right answer, and you just don't know it.
I agree. And that was one of the biggest things. I was worried when I did take this month off. I was worried I wasn't going to miss it. Like, that was my biggest worry. Like, my biggest worry was that, like, and that was like, if I don't miss it, man, like, what does that mean? Like, if I don't miss now, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't miss like some of the things, but like, as I put on the post there, I missed doing fireman stuff, right? Yeah. Like I missed doing fireman stuff. Like, I missed coming to work and talking to the guys on the shift and the gals on the shift, and sitting at the kitchen table and like going to a fire, pulling hose, teaching a new firefighter, right? Like, I get jazzed about that, right? Like I like that, like pumps me up. Like, if I know I'm going to a place where there's a new firefighter that's going to be assigned there, oh man, I'm pumped up. I'm like, let's go. I can teach this person something, right? Like, I've got so much to share with this person, right? Like, that gets me pumped. And I missed that, right? Like, I missed all of that. I turned down teaching opportunities at our recruit academy during that month I was off, and that was like, oh man, that hurt me a little bit, right? Like, I wanted to do those things. So yeah, I mean, I get it, right? I get
it. So we've already kind of halfway touched on this anyways, but taking a leave, can definitely re-energize a person. And if you do it right, you can be strategic about when you take a leave. So we've already kind of talked about when is the best time and stuff to take a leave. But do you have any more thoughts on any of that?
I don't know if there is a perfect time, right? Like, there's always something going on. I mean, if you're in a public safety, position, whether you're a volunteer career, right? Like, you're always going to run the risk that you miss a fire. Right. So a little, to tell on myself, I did tell on myself in the post as well. I did sneak in a little fire service in this month break, right? Like, I did sneak in I had this planned for over a year, and the Water on the Fire conference in Pensacola, Florida was the very last week of August. And that was and that was just tacked on to the end of, so I left, my wife and kids, we woke up at Disney World one morning, and,
I'm jealous.
Like, they went to a park. I gave them all hugs and kisses goodbye. They went off to Animal Kingdom. I went to the airport. We had been there for 8 days. It was plenty for me. And I got on an airplane and flew to Pensacola from Orlando and met up with my brother and some other guys from our department, and sat in the Water on the Fire conference, which, man, again, great conference. But like, I still needed that too, right? Like, I still needed that. And that was just another thing that helped me like re-energize myself. Like, now I'd been away from the fire service like 3 weeks. Like, I hadn't gone on a call. I mean, I turned my phone off. Like, we get alerts about major incidents. I killed that, right? Like, I wasn't responding to emails or nothing, right? Like, or anything like that, right? So I just ignored all of it. But then I got back, I re-energized my mind, And then I re-energized my passion by just hanging around all these into the job firefighters and guys from my department who I know get it and get me and all those type things. And man, you make that combination, that's pretty potent. When you go back to work, you're jazzed. You're ready to do some stuff, I think.
Oh, definitely. Most
But
definitely.
like you said, I don't know if there's a great time, right? Like I
Oh, it's
again,
always
I
a
have
terrible time. It's always a terrible time to take a break. This comes from anything you do. I mean, you might think that, oh, the department's going to fail without you, or like, well, who's going to take over this position, or what are they going to do? Maybe they're understaffed all the time, or if you're like, in my case, I was the PR person. So what happens if I leave and their PR is left in the dust or something? That affects a lot of
you're
stuff.
right.
And
It does.
there's never a good time. But the fire service will survive without you for at least a little while. It will.
Yep.
Not gonna lie, some things may suffer for a little while, but nothing that it can't bounce back from. And if somebody else is willing to take that over, then imagine if something happened to you fatally tomorrow. You have to be okay with the fact that happens and what's going to happen afterwards, and kind of a leave of absence is going to just make sure that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that there's a couple of things to that. Is 50 years ago, nobody knew who I was in Henrico County Division of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew who I was 50 years ago. And probably 50 years from the day I retire, no one will know who I am. But I guarantee that the Henrico County Division of Fire will still be going strong, right? And so I think that's great, right? So that's part of that legacy impact thing. But the other part of it too is I try not to tie, and again, this is a shift in my mentality. I try not to tie my identity to the fire department.
And see,
right?
that is
I'm
honestly tough even for me. Like it's tough. It is.
Yeah.
Because that takes up a lot of my free time, and it's a lot of where my interests lie and my passions lie. So how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, like if you'd have asked me 10 years ago, even probably, what I wanted on my gravestone, I wanted it to say firefighter, right? Like now I want it to say husband and father. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that is back to that whole legacy versus impact thing. But I see the negatives of guys that are tying their identity to being a firefighter or to the department, right? They're here long after they should have been. They hang on too long. And guess what happens? They retire, and 2 years after they retire, they're dead. And I don't want that to be me.
Mm-hmm.
Like my goal is to work 30 years in the fire service and make them pay me in my retirement for every year that I worked for them. That's my goal.
Yes.
That's my goal. Like I gave you 30 years, now you're going to pay me. Like that's the deal we signed the day I said, rose my right hand and said, hey, we do this, right? Like I'm going to do all this stuff for you, and now you're going to do something for me, right? Like that's the deal. But I see guys that are in their 60s, 65, 67, and they have no idea what they're going to do the day they walk out the door. Like they're so scared to go live the rest of their life because what's going to happen if I'm not a firefighter every day? And I just like, I don't want that to be me. So I'm trying actively, like I'm more than a firefighter. I love this job. I'm into it. Like I said, I've been to 3 conferences in the past, like 8 months, right? Like getting ready to go to another one in October that we host. I read fire engineering. I was reading John Norman's book before we, got on the recording, and I brought so I'm into it. I have a firefighting podcast, for Christ's sake. Like I'm into this, right? Like I love this job, but I'm more than this as well. And I'm a son and a brother and a father and a husband, and a grandson. I still have a living grandmother, right? Like I have to have time for her. She's 95. Every day could be her last day, and I don't want, you know what I mean? Like I want to have memories of her, and I want to be at my son's wrestling matches, and I want, you know what I mean? Like I think that I don't want to be just known as the guy who was a firefighter and ignored his family.
So how do I put this? Did that come just from age, or do you think if you would have instilled the family aspect and things sooner, do you think it would have come sooner? That difference in view of things?
I think it's a little bit of both, right?
Okay.
Like it's a little bit of both. I think the age definitely played a big factor in it, right? Like when none of us are guaranteed tomorrow, right? And I'm not trying to be morbid on the podcast or anything, right? But no one's guaranteed tomorrow. And when you start approaching, as you start to get older and you have tenure, you start to realize that you're kind of on the clock. You know what I mean? Like, like when you're in your 20s, you don't think about that, right? Like,
don't think about that.
But when right, you're not even thinking about that, right? Like, I'll be 40 in January, like, and hopefully I've got 50, 60 years left, right? But you don't know, so you start to think like, man, I'm on the clock here. And if I'm going to make some change, if I'm going to make a change, it needs to be now, right? And so that's kind of part of it, right? And the other part of it, I didn't pay attention to the example that was set for me. And I've said this before on some podcasts. I didn't pay attention to the example that my father set fast enough. And I can tell you that, like, my father is, I mean, he's still alive. My father is a tough man, but he's a fair man. And he sacrificed a lot of his extracurricular time for me, my brother, and my sister. Mm-hmm. I cannot tell you, even though he was a firefighter, blah, 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 all that stuff, I can't tell you of games he missed. I don't remember practices that he missed. I know he had to have, right? But like, he was at so many, the ones he missed are like, there's so few you don't remember them.
Yeah.
So like, and there's, I mean, like, the guy, it's still to this day, now that he's retired, he's like, oh, the boys are wrestling in Alexandria. That's 2.5 hours away. All right, I'll meet you up there. That's just, and I was an idiot. And he set that example my whole life. And I didn't pay attention to it until, gosh, it never even clicked in my brain until I was probably, I don't know, 30, 32, 33,
mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of it too. I'm just not very bright.
I don't think you're alone, because my parents did the same thing, actually. They own their own business, and so they were able to like take us to school functions, and they were able to be the parents for field trips and things like that, and whatnot, and spend a lot of time with us. And I mean, I remember it and it was great, but at the same time, I don't know if I've been in that mindset for my future down the road children either, like I want to, but at the same time, I'm like, well, there needs to be give and take. But it's nice hearing other perspectives, because it's getting me to rethink all this, maybe try to think a little older and a little wiser than I currently am.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, again, 2 beautiful kids, love them to death, and man, they're awesome. But like, I remember when my first son was born, like, it's your first child, right? After 2 days of being home, I was begging my wife to let me go back to work. I was like, let me go back to work. I mean, and again, that's part of that's immaturity, right? I turned 24 like 6 days after he was born. You know what I mean? So some of that's immaturity, right? Like, and plus too, though, right? I'm 24 years old, 23, 24 years old, and like 6 days after he's born, I'm at the busiest company in Henrico County. I know they've already gone to a fire while I've been at the hospital, mm-hmm. right? Because they came to see me. You know what I mean? Like, they came to visit me, and I'm like, oh, I'm so, I'm like, I'm missing stuff. Yeah, I'm missing things, right? When in reality, that's the first time I should have taken a month off, right?
Yeah.
When my second son was born, I literally 2 days in, I was like, all right, girl, you got this. Like, you got it. You got 2 kids now. You good? I'm going back to work, right? Like, and it just, because again, I was still at that busy company. I was like, I don't want to miss a fire, like any of that. In reality, that I should have been taking that month off then. Right?
Yeah.
I should have been taking that month off then, and to help her. And thankfully, my wife is a saint. She deals with it. But talking about taking a leave of absence, like, that's another great reason. Like, golly, if you're going to have a kid, they're only, I mean, I love that they're the age they're at now, because they're really cool. Like, we can watch like adult movies. You know what I mean? Like, we watched Major Payne the other day. The kids had never seen it. It was awesome. We're laughing. We're doing all this stuff. It's great. It's great. Like, you can tell certain kinds of jokes now, and they get it. Like, it's so great. But they're only little once. And I'll be quite honest with you, I missed a lot of that, probably from the time they were born to probably about my oldest son was like 5 or 6. Like, I wasn't around as much as I should have been, right? And not like deadbeat dad type stuff, but it's like, oh, there's a fire class in Charlottesville. I'm going to that. I'll be home tonight. I'll tuck them into bed, but I'm not going to be here today. Mama, you got to take them to the park, when I should have been taking them to the park. And so now, like, what I tend to do now is I plan my training classes a year in advance, and I don't add anything to them. I'm like, hey, I'm going to these 3 things, and I don't add, even if it's tempting. Like, I don't add because I know that the other time is for them. And so again, that's talking about that, taking that leave of absence. But that's another good reason to take a leave of absence, right? Like, if it's a once in a lifetime training thing, and you've got the support of your family and your department, man, go do it, right? Like, there's some things that like John Norman is only going to be alive for so long. I mean, I had the opportunity to go listen to him speak.
Oh man.
Yeah, like, I was like, I got to take this opportunity because you keep thinking that like they're going to be here forever, and then like Alan Bernascini, he's passed away, right? Like, and I can never go here. Like, the last chance I had to listen to him talk, I didn't go, and I passed that up, right? So again, it's a balance to everything, right? Like, talking about leave of absence and when it's good to, man, that's another thing. That's a really good reason to go take a leave of absence. And some of these guys who are rock stars in our job, if you have the opportunity to go see him speak, and you should go, like, if you can, right? Like, you can make that work.
Yes. So one last thing I kind of want to touch on here, one last point. Just kind of breaking what everyone likes to say now, breaking the stigma of taking a leave of absence. It doesn't mean you don't love the job. It doesn't mean you're not a good firefighter. It's not a bad thing to take a leave of absence. I know that when people do it, there are at least a subsection of people that look down on it. And I wish that didn't happen. So
yeah, I'm with you. Like, and it happens in my job. Man, it happens in my job. There are guys that pride themselves that they've got 1,000 hours of annual leave. I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they wear that like it's a badge of honor. I mean, I'm not trying to insult them, but I kind of look at that as a badge of stupidity, right? Like, that's not, I don't think it's a good thing. I really don't. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's good that you have 1,000 hours of leave and, all this stuff. I think that you need to balance you can still love the job and be involved in and have other aspects of your life. Right. I mean, like, I feel like I'm a great example of that. I love watching my kids wrestle. I love coaching wrestling. Like, I mean, like, I love it, so I mean, it's one of the things I mean, I think it's okay for me to take a day off here and there to go coach wrestling. Like, I think it's great. Like, I like sports. I really do. I'm into, like, I like competition. So, like, if two people are competing against each other, chances are I'm going to go watch it. Like, even the hot dog contest. I love watching the hot dog eating contest on 4th of July. I love it. So I mean, like, there's a chance that I'm probably gonna, I want to see it. And I'm not saying take off work for that, but you get what I mean. Like, there's other interests out there. There's other things. You don't have to tie your identity to this. So take a break every once in a while. It's okay. It'll still be here when you get back. I promise.
Yep. All right. I think that's about all I have tonight, if you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So how can people find you or contact you if they would like to?
Yeah. So I'm on a majority of the social media platforms. Twitter at Average Jake Firefighter. I think that's what it is. It's because I have a Twitter page for just me, and then I have a Twitter page for the podcast and the blog. Right. So if you don't, you can follow me. It's Average Jake FF is the Twitter for the podcast and the blog. My personal Twitter is RCO1982. But if you follow that one, you're going to see pictures of, like, you're going to see sports gambling stuff, because I love doing that. Like wrestling, like pictures of my kids, like all that kind of stuff. And then the same thing with Instagram. I have the Average Jake Firefighter like podcast one that is my Instagram, and then I have just Average Jake FF, which is just my personal one, right? So, like, if you follow the podcast and the one, you're gonna hear like lots of firefighter stuff. If you follow the personal one, you're gonna see pictures of like the types of beer that I like, and you know what I mean, like and stuff about wrestling and my kids wrestling and stuff like that. So, but if you like that kind of thing, then awesome. And then of course the website averagejakefirefighter.com. I'm not blogging as much as I used to. I still blog here and there, but I really enjoy the podcast medium and the spoken word medium, and I just enjoy that a little better. And honestly, I think I can convey my thoughts a little better speaking them versus writing them down. So, but every once in a while, I'll still fire off a blog when I'm feeling passionate about it. But yeah, other than that, and that's where I'm at. Just a shameless plug real quick. I know this is going to air at the end of the month, but we do this conference every year, again, with my good friend Ben Martin. The Fireground Commander Conference is something I'm really passionate about. It's a passion project of mine. We do it every year in Henrico County, Virginia. This year, October 25th to the 27th. So it's probably, by the time this comes out, it'll be too late to come this year.
So
but next year,
when is the last week or last day? Can you sign up like that day even, or?
Yeah, we have 1 day passes. So like, yeah, you have 1 day passes. So like, even when there's 10 slots left for the actual main conference, but we have single day passes that are available for each individual day. So like, if you woke up on the morning of the 27th and wanted to come, you could register and come that morning.
You know how bad I want to fly out there and do that.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have gosh, why am I drawing a blank? Ryan Pennington doing Hoarder Fires. We're gonna have Eric Wheaton. We have 10 speakers. This is the 4th annual one that we've done. We have 10 speakers on the fire service. And then we've already got the lineup for next year. Can't release it yet because we're hoping to kind of tease it out at the end of this year's conference. But typically it's about 200 to 300 people in the Henrico Theater. We do a social on Monday night to raise money for the Central Virginia Burn Camp. I mean, it is something that I'm truly, truly passionate about. Is this Fireground Commander Conference that we just kind of started from a grassroots effort, just Ben Martin and myself and my other good friend Taylor Goodman, who worked for our department. So yeah, I mean, just super thing. Other than that, again, thanks for the opportunity to come on the podcast and talk about a really interesting topic. I wish you guys luck in your future episodes, and if there's ever another topic you feel like I'd be good at, bring me back on. I'd be glad to come back on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robby, and we'll talk to you another time. Thank you. Thanks for coming by and listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram @Couplings Fire Podcast. See you next time, everybody.